An isekai where the main character does not have too many windfalls at the start is a realistic one in my books, and one I'm happy to review. Let's talk about A Soldier's Life. Hey there everybody, welcome back to Fantasy Inc. My name is Wythe, and today we are doing a book review, not a series review, just on book one of A Soldier's Life by Alwaysrollsaone. This is a pretty realistic isekai if I've ever read one, and as y'all know, I've read many before. We'll go ahead and jump into the semi-spoiler free review. This journey follows Eric, a gentleman on his way to his nephew's shotgun wedding in South Dakota. On his journey, he ends up running out of gas in a snowstorm and we assume passes away. There he wakes up naked as the day he was born in someone's barn, and the farmer and their family decides to send him over to the town guard. Understandable. Trespassing, totally fair. They, however, make up some other allegations against him, and he is inevitably press-ganged into the military. Now, that's not where Eric's misfortune stops, but things do tend to look up for him as a main character, as a protagonist. You can imagine he has some pretty interesting power sets that are on their way to assist him, as well as he's able to eventually gain the ground to, get a little bit more in shape by going into military service, taking some gambles, and them working out here and not working out there, but at the same time allowing him a path to progression through this new world, which really does intrigue me, and I cannot wait to check out some later books in the series. Like I mentioned, I've just read up to book one thus far. To my knowledge, there are 2 other books out on audio. I know for a fact Alwaysrollsaone does have a Royal Road link as well as a Patreon link. You'll be able to find those in the description below, so I encourage y'all to feel free, if you are readers, to go ahead, give it a try for free. If you do already know about the author and love their works, always good to support our local dealer when it does come to our lit RPG addictions, which I can imagine if you're watching this channel, I think we share this one. Going ahead and jumping over to the pro-con pro for the series. The first pro, and I kind of touched on it earlier in the review, it is a realistic lit RPG isekai. Now, again, there's a lot of caveats with that sentence, so I'll go ahead and explain. I think in a decent chunk of isekais, right, you have a main character thrown into another world, either by Truck-kun or some other nefarious means that have killed them on Earth. And they get there, and yes, they might be stuck in a dungeon or might be in a situation that is not ideal, but at the same time, they very quickly are able to either meet their mentor, make friends that, will journey with them and become their adventuring party along the way, jump into a school because someone walking through town sees their talent accidentally, even though they're trying very hard to hide it. This one, however, you do not get that here. It is straight up a situation where the man is in jail and he has 2 options. He can either become a laborer and try to work off this 2 to 5 year debt that was hoisted upon him by fake allegations from the farmers, or he can try his best to work off his debt by joining the military of a country he knows nothing about. I think in that case, most of us would make the same decision as our main character Eric and join the military, but at the same time, he's not making too many friends along the way, at least at the start of his journey, and he has a lot of uphill battles. So I think this definitely is a more realistic version of what would happen if any of us were thrown into a situation where we did not speak the language and it's a completely different world, completely different culture, and you are woefully unprepared, at least when it comes to the stitches that you're wearing. Now, when it comes to the con, the stat sheet is very inconsistent. Now, at the same time, Eric does not have control of just pulling up his stats like a regular old lit RPG. It is a tool that is used, and in some cases of the book, he has access to the tool, and in other cases, he has no way to access it. But that does lead to, let's say, in a few chapters, you're seeing his stat sheet, it feels like 15 times, and then in the other parts of the book, you actually want to know his stats, but you can't find out because he doesn't have access to this tool. So there are certain situations where you're being overwhelmed and underwhelmed. So that was my main con for the book, mainly the overwhelming. I felt like I was skipping parts of the audiobook every other chapter just because, nothing has really changed here. But again, that is a small gripe, and when you have the fast forward button at the palm of your hands, it's really not too bad. I think it's better in a literary form when it comes to this, because you can just glance over the changes if you do desire to do so. So that is something to consider. Now, when it comes to the second and last pro for this book, I have to say the magic system is simple yet elegant. And what I mean by that is the author, Alwaysrollsaone, is not coming up with some masterpiece, some magic system that we've never seen before. But at the same time, what he does solidify here is very, very well thought out in its simplicity. Again, I'm using that word and there's a bad connotation to it. That's not what I mean here. To give a brass tacks of what the magic system looks like, there are 21 different attributes that someone can exhibit when it comes to the magic system. You have the commons, you have the uncommons, and you have the rares, and each of them have 7. Now, obviously, the rares are a little bit more difficult for the average Joe to have, and we can assume a main character is going to have a couple. It's so easy to explain to the reader, and you don't have to go back to certain chapters to try to get more of a handle on it when new things pop up, because it is a simple magic system, and yet it's a very cool one at that. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing how the main character progresses down his road that he's been selected for lack of a better term, because he has a lot of opportunities to grow in power, and he's barely tapped into his potential thus far. So I was a big fan of this magic system, and I'm hoping that in book 2 and book 3, we get more powers, more abilities, and more potential out of Eric. I do encourage all y'all to check out those links in the description below. The author does have some other works out that you can check out on Royal Road or Patreon. I do believe that this series is the only one that's gone through a publication process so far. So if you like the writing by this author, that is where you're going to be able to find other works by them. I do hope that if you have checked this series out, feel free to jump in the comments below and tell me your thoughts on it. With all that said, we're going to go ahead and jump into the deep dive now, talking about the spoilers in book 1, possibly making some predictions. I don't know how I'm feeling just quite yet. So if you have checked this series out, feel free to join me there. And if not, I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your week, and be sure to keep reading. I think it's like a mandatory trope in lit RPGs, specifically isekais, that the main character has to hide their special abilities. And for obvious reasons, of course. They're on a new world, they don't know who they can trust or not, and in this case, he wants to keep his cards close to his chest, being an Outworlder and learning a few facts about Outworlders on this new planet. He realizes that they might not be as safe as they could be. But it's always so interesting to see how bad they mess up, or, have a moment here and there where they take a gamble and, people are catching on to them. And we definitely get that when it comes to his confrontation with his platoon leader, Castile, one or the other. And she's able to catch on to his abilities. I do like how, there's some cases where you need some foreshadowing, and there's other cases where you just want to hit the reader with a blindside ability. And in this case, with the platoon leader's third eye ability, I believe that was what it was called, we realize that Eric is woefully unprepared when it comes to this world of schemes. He's definitely just a soldier in his mind, and if he doesn't keep these cards closer to his chest, he is going to be figured out very, very soon. At least that is my assumption here. When it does come to his abilities, I am a big fan of them. It's simple, yet it's elegant. I said it at the forefront of the video, and I'm going to stick to my guns there. The fact that he has the ability to, access 5 out of the 7 rare slots and is able to imprint one spell depending on his capacity, or whatever the term was used in the books, is very smart. There's not a lot of fluff there, and there doesn't need to be for every magic system. Some books it's appreciated, and in this book I feel like it would take away from the main element of a story, which is its title. It's about a soldier's life. He's not going to be this adventurer who's, diving into dungeons solo. He's also not going to be, jumping into political office anytime soon, at the very least. He is trying his best to survive and build his power up so maybe one day he can buy out of his contract or flee from being a soldier, which I don't expect is going to happen very soon now that we understand that the Emperor has individuals referred to as hounds ready to track down deserters. One thing that I thought was an interesting choice in the first book was the one chapter where we flipped perspectives. Throughout the whole book thus far, it's all been about Eric's first point of view. And around the back quarter of this first book, we flipped to the enemy general's perspective, who is looking for his elven sister. And we figure out, or at least he determines, that Eric is a void mage, which is not that correct, but it does give a reason why he's following the enemy soldiers outside of the city so hard, because he's trying to get vengeance for his sister. Yes, I can understand the reasoning there, but I thought if that was going to be a choice that the author made, we would have gotten maybe a separate perspective from potentially Castile, potentially Constantine. I'm wondering if in the later books that we are going to get that change in perspective, whether it's more or even less. I wasn't not a fan of it, but I think it was an interesting choice just to have it once within the first book. I'm hoping in either book 2 or book 3, potentially book 4, that he has the ability to go and get a little more extra training from the mage school. He would not be a soldier, so it might be taking away from the main point of the story, so it might not be on the table. All y'all know, I'm a sucker for school tropes. We'll see. I have a hope in my heart, but I don't have a lot of expectation for it. At the end of the day, though, he does need some extra training when it does come to his magical abilities, because right now he only has the 2 spells he knows about, as well as a third that he does not know about to some degree. And he has a lot more availability to learn more spells that he can imprint on his internal core. So at least in book 2, I assume we're going to get more of his abilities fleshed out on the table, though a mentor figure in this case would not go unwanted. After I finish book 3, I might hold off on a series review until we get to the book 4 when it finally comes to the audio platform, so y'all keep an eye out for that video in the future. Until then, I do appreciate all y'all's time. Feel free to jump in the comments. Like I say in every video, would love to talk about this series with y'all. And until then, I hope y'all have a fantastic rest of your week, and be sure to keep reading.